Hello, my name's Jane Newsome. I'm a retired priest living in Birmingham, but I'm a friend of St Anne's. And today I'm going to share with you the reading from John chapter 5, verses 1 to 15, and then I'll read it to you, and then I'll share a few reflections afterwards. So John chapter 5, beginning at verse 1. After this, there was a festival of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now, in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, there is a pool called in Hebrew Bethesda, which has 5 porticos. In these lay many invalids, blind, lame, and paralyzed. One man was there who had been ill for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he'd been there a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, and while I'm making my way, someone else steps down ahead of me." Jesus said to him, "Stand up, take your mat, and walk." At once the man was made well, and he took up his mat and began to walk. Now, that day was a Sabbath. So the Jews said to the man who had been cured, "It is the Sabbath. It's not lawful for you to carry your mat." But he answered them, "The man who made me well said to me, 'Take up your mat and walk.'" They asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, 'Take up and walk'?" Now, the man who'd been healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had disappeared in the crowd that was there. Later, Jesus found him in the temple and said to him, "See, you have been made well. Do not sin any more, so that nothing worse happens to you." The man went away and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well. 38 years. That's how long he had been ill. The time for a boy to become a man to grow into old age. Seasons and emperors and fashions come and go, and still he is there, waiting by the pool for someone to help him into the healing waters. And in all that time, did no one say to him, "Here you are, mate, take my hand, I'll help you into the pool"? In all that time, did the man not even once lose patience, create a scene, shout out for someone to make space for him to be lowered into the waters? Was it just that after a while he just became part of the scenery? Just like those 5 porticos we read about, he'd been there for years, and that's just how things were. After a while, did he not see any other possibility for his life? Well, this is it then. No dreams of anything else. And into all of this, John tells us that Jesus asked the question that no one else had thought to ask or wanted to ask or could be bothered to ask. Do you want to be made well? I wonder what that question did to the onlookers. Did they think that this was a ridiculously obvious question? Were they annoyed that this stranger comes and meddles in things that don't concern him? Did they feel challenged and slightly guilty that they'd never thought of asking him that question? And what about the man who was healed? Well, he doesn't even answer the question directly. He says, I have no one to put me into the pool, or someone else always gets in my way when I try to get in. Those aren't answers. They are excuses. And Jesus doesn't respond with soothing, sympathetic words. He responds with a challenge. Stand up, pick up your mat and walk. And that's exactly what the man does. The work of healing isn't just something that is done to him. He has to make a choice, so that healing restores not only the man's physical health, but his dignity and his ability to choose. And when Jesus sees the man again, he's in the temple, having been quizzed by the temple authorities about who it was who healed him. They are not rejoicing that he's been healed. They are concerned about sticking to the letter of the law, a law that says that it's not permitted to carry your mat on a Sabbath day. It's not permitted to do any sort of work on the Sabbath, including works of healing. An interpretation of the law that confines and imprisons every bit as much as his illness did. John gradually reveals to us in his gospel the collision course with the Jewish authorities that Jesus is on. But when Jesus finds the man in the temple, his concern is for the man, not for his own safety. Jesus reminds him of the preciousness of his life. "See, you have been made well," he says to him. His restored and healed life is a gift to be treasured and not squandered. "Do not sin anymore," Jesus said. It's important what he does with this new leaf of life that he's been given, with all the choices and responsibilities that go along with it, as well as the challenges and even the dangers. John, in his gospel, presents us with a Jesus who turns from the pages of the gospel and says to us, "Do you want to be made well?" This is a challenge to us about all the things that we take for granted in our own lives and in the life of our communities and of our world. It's a challenge to the mindset that says, well, that's just how it is, can't do anything about it. Here in the story from St. John's Gospel, we meet the Jesus who heals, who restores, who challenges, who takes risks and asks us to take them too. The Jesus who is willing to risk his life that we might know God's wholeness and healing.